All right. Welcome into another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of hockeyroyalty.com. We got a win, boys, and we're going to be talking about this road trip. So spirits are high. Get in the chat. Hit that like button. You know what to do. Let's go. As always, that intro is brought to you by Ezera, their new single Blind out now, anywhere you listen to music, so go check them out. Boys, we're celebrating a win tonight. Podcast has a little bit different vibes than maybe if we would have went live last night after the game, but we're celebrating a win. It's and we got the Dodgers on, so I know if you guys need to go away and watch or have it on the background, we don't blame you, but we're here to talk about our Kings tonight. We're wishing the Dodgers the best. Go try to go up 3-1 in the series. But how are you guys doing tonight?
Yeah, I think you had said it best. It would have been a little bit of a different vibe if we did it last night. But, hey, 4-1 win in Montreal to end the East Coast part of this road trip. I think vibes are a little bit higher. How you doing, Joe? I know maybe my Yankee counterpart here might be.
My vibes are not very high right now. I don't give the Kings win doesn't really the way the Yankees lost that game it'll be a tough one to sleep tonight. But I will try to turn this around and focus on the big win for the Kings, which is I don't say they needed it, like you're so early in the season, but certainly heading back home after the way the last couple of games have went, really, really nice to get a win. So good to get the 2 points under the belt there. Brandon, how you doing?
Good. I wore outside the hat. I wore all black today. I was going to a funeral. Black jeans, black shirt. But all King stuff. So. Meaning business today, running my errands, but doing well. Obviously, the good game by the Dodgers last night. They're up right now. So I just doing well. I think kind of frustrated with this whole thing. A lot of stuff we're going to talk about, questions, and everything's kind of in a blender. So we're going to get to that. But first off, we got to go to the chat. We got a lot of people in here. More ecstatic than after this win here. Ready. Gwendolyn. Right here with the Go Kings Go. Dan P. Good evening, fans. Good game tonight. Defense was so much better, and Big Save Dave looked like a Big Save Dave. Dave O with a hello, boys. Nice win. Terry coming here with the Go Kings Go. Gwendolyn with another, hey, England goal? What the fork? Dave O, England for Norris. I think we're getting a little out of hand. People are too excited if he's getting votes for Norris, but I like it. What we're doing here. So before we get into all the King stuff on the road trip, this year we're going to do a little bit more talking about just hockey in general. So for our inaugural episode, we're doing a little episode thing called Coast to Coast. So welcome in. We're going to be talking about the NHL for a little bit here in our first special of Coast to Coast. Boys, it's been a special around the NHL, but nothing more special than the Johnny Gaudreau tributes that have been going around. We talked about, it right away. When it first happened, but having that 13 seconds run off the clock before they even played or moved was kind of a nice tribute along with other things around the NHL. Really, really good to see.
Yeah, the opening, just even that puck drop where they just gave off the 13 seconds and then, they passed it off to his side on the wing and only started with 4 skaters. I mean, I don't know if that was leaked or anything like that, but I didn't know that was something that they had planned that they were going to do. But I thought the whole night was just emotional. But I know it's a tough spot for Columbus fans and the players, everybody just involved in the Blue Jackets organization, the family, and everything like that. I can't imagine being in that environment. But I thought the Blue Jackets did a real nice job paying tribute to Johnny and Matthew too. So. Yeah, it was just an emotional night and a tough circumstance, and of course, we wish their family the best. But I thought that they handled it pretty well.
Yeah, being in and I don't think we've recorded since the Kings season has started. I'm drawing a blank now, but we were in Buffalo. I was in Buffalo, obviously, for the opener, and it wasn't anything crazy like we saw it, in Columbus. But even still, just being there and seeing the stuff on the video board, and you could hear a pin drop. Everybody in that building was dead silent, extremely respectful, and it was, it is an emotional thing. And then when you watch what happened, like you said, Russ, in Columbus. Just no words for that. It's just an incredible tribute to go skate with 4 skaters, left wing being open. They do the puck job. It was just incredible. I don't have a whole lot of words to describe it, but it was, there's been a lot of these kind of tributes and stuff, and that's the biggest one, obviously, being in Columbus. And it was fitting, as fitting as you can be for the circumstance, and they did a great job. They did a great job with that. So, it's been tough to see, honestly, because it's just so hard to imagine and still to think that he's not playing anymore. He's not even here. I just can't.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wrap my head around that. But they did a great job. Columbus did a great job.
Who also did a great job was the agent of Mr. Ottinger. So Ottinger, or Otter as they call him over there, gets a lucrative deal, signs 8 years, $66 million. But another top goalie turns down the most lucrative goalie contract ever offered to a goalie, 8 years, $88 million. A lot of money being thrown out for team #goalies here. What do you guys think about these contracts? Kind of wild.
Right? #goalie. Man, these top end goalies, it's tough, right? I mean, we've been preaching about all these like goalie situations, especially around LA, with everything that we've been going through and watching over the last few seasons. There hasn't really been this number one netminder since Jonathan Quick kind of rode off into the sunset. But I think with some of these elite talented goaltenders, it'd be hard pressed not to pay them, right? Like, you're in a situation where you have what a lot of people consider to be like top 5, maybe even top 3 goaltenders with Shesterkin or Ottinger. So it's like, if you don't pay them and they do end up going somewhere else, like, your fan base is probably gonna be pretty pissed if you don't have a good insurance policy or backup policy if those goalies end up leaving or whatever for your future. So yeah, I don't know if it's something that they're kind of have their hands tied, where you're like, okay, well, we have the goalie, we have to pay him. But so it's like bittersweet, because we've kind of talked about it, Joe. Like, we're on the end where it's like, okay, if you can build a good team in front of you, a goaltender, you can be a little bit more successful without having those elite netminders behind you. So, but it's tough because then when you have all that salary cap tied up in that one position, you're kind of limited in what other positions you can upgrade. So it's tough. Like, I think Dallas did pretty well with this goal, with their situation, 8.25 per for 8 years. I think that's a real solid deal for Ottinger. I think he's a great goaltender. So I think that'll age well. The Shesterkin one's really interesting to hear that he's asking for 10 or even 11 per year. Like, oof, I don't know if I'm the Rangers, like, that's something I'd really have to consider, even with him being one of the best, if not the best goaltender in the NHL.
Of these deals, the Otter one makes the most sense. I think he's the most quote unquote proven. Like, Swayman's been a 1A, 1B situation for basically his entire time he's been in the NHL. So, now he's the guy. And so I guess there's still some question. I still think he's a good goalie. I think he's going to be fine. I don't think the contract. The biggest thing for me with these is the term. Like, I can be more on board with paying a goalie a big contract or big money on a short term. I don't like the term, but at least Swayman and Ottinger are only 25 years old. So it's a little bit easier to swallow. The cap going up makes this easier to swallow. So I think Swayman is probably a little overpaid. I think Ottinger cashed in. I think that really helped him. I think he locked in. That's probably a good number for him and probably a good number for Dallas. I mean, just all things considered, when you look at I mean, if Otter continues to be one of the more consistently good goalies in the NHL and higher end goalies in the NHL, you know, because if you look at which I think it's absolutely crazy that Shesterkin turns down 8x11. Like I say that I shouldn't say it's crazy because he's the best goalie in the league, and I think you pay for floor. Like even in his down years, he's still a top 10 goalie. So I think there's something to be said for paying for the floor too, that he's not going to be one of these goalies that has a year where he's just a bad goalie. Like he may have a down year, but he's still going to be a good goalie. And he's the Rangers' best player. And, without him, it's a significant loss. So I think he's playing that card, and I understand it, but I mean, I'm not paying him 8x12. I'm just not. He's older, right? He's going to be 29. So
according to John, he'll be 30 when his deal starts.
Okay, yeah. So I got a hard time now. Again, these days, guys are aging way better. We've seen that. So maybe there's a case for it, but I get real antsy paying a goalie that many years and that much money. But there is a deal that hasn't been talked about, I don't think, nearly as much. And I don't know how I feel about it. Joey Daccord got 5x5. I don't know if you guys saw that in Seattle. That's a commitment. That's not nothing, right? I mean, that's a deal. So I don't know where I land on that. I mean, it seems like that's obviously not to the extent of the 8+, but man, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Joey Daccord getting $5 million per year. That seems like a lot for a guy that I think he's a fine young how young is he anymore?
He's been an age kind of.
He's 28.
Yeah.
He's been around a bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
That one was more of a head scratcher because that was like either you pay just move on. Like you don't need Joey Daccord. You need to commit to Joey Daccord, right? I understand that you want to keep him around and you want somebody to be there with Phil Grubauer, but that's a situation where next year they're going to have $11 million tied up in Phil Grubauer and Joey Daccord. So when you put it in that sense, having, say, if you pay Shesterkin 11 to 12 and a backup 1 to 2, you've got $13 million tied up in Shesterkin and Jonathan Quick or whoever the backup is. It's a heck of a lot better than $11 million tied up in Grubauer and Joey Daccord. So, I don't know. That's I don't love the term for the goalies as much as anything, but if I'm them, I understand trying to get it, obviously, especially Shesterkin because he's the best player on that team.
Do you think we're getting to the point where maybe we're a little blinded by 10? We hear the term $10 million per year, but it's a few years ago, that would have been crazy. Even Drew Doughty who got $11 million per year. That's a lot. That was the highest paid contract in the NHL at the time.
I think he's still a top 5 paid defenseman.
Yeah, but I feel like we're getting to the point where I don't know. I've always thought we should be talking more about hit percentage than
because 8's not that 8's not
exactly that Ottinger deal feels like it could age extremely well for how good of a goalie he is. But but I agree with you with Shesterkin. If he's asking I think it was Carter who mentioned that he's actually asking for 11, or he asked for 11, or he turned it down.
He turned down 11.
Not asking for it, but he might be asking for 12. That's a lot. That's something.
The cap right now? What's the cap right now?
88.5, 88.75, something like that.
Okay.
So, that's oof. I don't know.
But all these teams that have to commit to a goalie, none of these teams are going to be hey, I have to. We're all trying to win a cup now. Let's just move our goalie somewhere else and do it a different way. You can't. I think they're in a situation where they can't pray for anything else. So, if you get rid of Igor, he goes somewhere else, and then you bring in a goalie that doesn't work, and the Rangers aren't competitive. You messed up. These aren't teams that are giving contracts to goalies when they're an okay team or they're rebuilding or whatever, Dallas doesn't have a choice but to play Ottinger, and it's a good choice to pay him, and they don't have a choice but to pay him because they're trying to win. they have a lot of aging out guys that are going to be leaving that want to try to win a cup before they leave. I mean, sometimes you have to do, and then you make the money work somewhere else with your fillers and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had the thought of like trying to sign your younger guys, your Byfields and Kempe a couple years back, to as long as you can get them. Get them for 8 years, get them as long as you can. Like the exact opposite for the goalies. It's like I want to try to lock in these guys a year sooner, but like for short term. That's wishful thinking. I know that's not always the possibility to happen because this just doesn't always make sense for the player. So I get that, but it just finds that you find yourself in a tough spot if you got that position locked in to that many years at such a high hit. So I don't know. I agree though, Russ, that of the ones, I think the Ottinger one should age fine. Like he's looks the part.
Well, I mean, it's another news, but it's not really coast to coast here. It was brought up in the chat, so I think we should just pay our respects really quick. Gan from Frozen Royalty, another Kings columnist, passed away today. A couple people in the chat say they knew him personally, so rest in peace, and may him and his family find solace in that.
Yeah, I saw that news today. Helene wrote that article, and it caught me by surprise. I haven't personally met Gan. I know he'd been covering the Kings for a while, but like I'm sure like all of us, we've read his stuff with Frozen Royalty. He's covered them for some time. It's just, that was real sad news to see. So yeah, best wishes to him and to his family.
Yeah, thank you for I missed this today. Like Russ said, obviously I didn't know Gan personally, but very familiar with Frozen Royalty. That's awful to hear. So rest in peace. And I'm thinking about him and his family.
There's no easy segue after that, but I think some other players have looking good. Some of the rookies have looked good. I think some teams come fast out of the gate, like Utah. Where's another storyline in the league that you guys kind of want to hit?
For me, it's I'm going to New Jersey. This is a team that was a pretty trendy pick at the start, but you figure they had a pretty tough schedule. They had to start overseas in Czech. They came home and they've played a lot of games. They've got 7 games under their belt already, even with that trip overseas. And they're 5-2. They won again today. And for all the talk about rookies with Michkov, and rightfully so, Celebrini's going to get a lot of pub, rightfully so. Kings fans that watch Lane Hudson today, that kid's electric. But boy, oh boy, don't sleep on Seamus Casey. He's got 3 goals and an assist already. He's a defenseman. This kid can move. He's a player. I mean, he probably got his spot. Well, I shouldn't say he got his spot, but he was helped. His roster spot kind of opened up a little bit because of they had some injuries on the back end. I know Hughes is out on the back end. I want to say there's another one that's hurt on the back end for New Jersey that I can't think of, but he has stepped in, and he's going to be tough to take out if when those guys get back healthy.
Is Pesci playing? Or he
is now. I think he is now. He missed that. He didn't make the Czech trip. I don't know if he didn't make the trip. He didn't play in the Czech trip. And Casey, that is who I was thinking of. Hughes and Pesci was out early, but Casey's been so good. I don't know how they're going to take this kid out of the lineup. So if you get a chance to check in on the Devils, they're off to a really good start. They lead the division. Markstrom's been really good, and again, like I said, with all the talk of some exciting rookies, don't lose or miss out on Seamus Casey. He's a fun one back there.
Yeah, the Devils have. I mean, it's good to see like a team that a lot of people expected last year to be contenders, or at least I expected them to be contenders. Then I know I'm glad that Gwendolyn mentioned in the chat having Dougie Hamilton back is so good for them because that was such a huge loss for them last year. And really, that's like Drew Doughty type impact, even more so probably for them with all the young talent that they have to lose that kind of veteran defenseman who they're expecting to be productive and be their number 1 throughout the entire year. Yeah, that's that's tough to bounce back from. So yeah, it was going to be a tough go from there. But I'm going to stay in the Metro and go with the other team, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and just stick with one player and
Yeah.
Getty Malkin. Like, dude,
Yeah.
like what the hell? 11 points in 5 games. Like, I know they're 3-2. It's not like they're like beating everybody, but to a pulp. But like, it's and it was cool to see the moment where Malkin got what I think it was his 500th goal, and then Crosby his 1600th point.
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah, in the same game, like that was cool. But to see Malkin still going at this pace that he's at, I mean, and I don't know, maybe this goes like I'm going to take a little bit of a segue, but maybe like this where I think like you need to get Russia back in the Olympics. Like, there's too many talented players, and especially with all these young Russian players like Kirill Kaprizov that we haven't seen, and Shesterkin hasn't been. Yeah. There's so many, and it's just good to see. Like, you want to see international talent come together and be involved in like these international tournaments, especially with the Winter Olympics coming up in two years, and you have the Four Nations tournament. It's kind of a precursor to that. But just to kind of go back to that Malkin, I've always been a big fan of Malkin. He's this big brute guy. I remember, what was it, the behind the scenes of the Winter Classic, like back in the day with when it was Boudreaux on Washington, and I remember like Malkin was like the guy that always had to be the guy going last out, and even Crosby would be like, no, you're going in front of me. So yeah, it's the stories to hear from him and to see that he's still the productive player that he is. It's been a fun go. They're a fun team to watch. I mean, you have players like Carlson and Crosby and all that talent there. Like, they're going to score a lot of goals, but who knows if it'll turn into wins. But it's been a decent start for them.
Yeah.
I think for my coast to coast, it kind of the Pacific. I mean, to stay within our coast, kind of weird. We got Calgary undefeated. We got Edmonton in the bottom. I mean, the Sharks only have 2 points, but they look kind of competitive compared to last year. They looked abysmal. It's just, and then you have Ducks right in the center. Like, and I think that it's kind of weird early. And yeah, I mean, Joe's going to bring it up last year with the dumpster fire that the Oilers were, and then they came back and made it to the Cup final. So we're, a week in, but another slow start for Edmonton, and our boys, we had on the crossover, they're hoping for their draft pick to be a lottery pick, and they're 4-0. They got 8 points. They're in first. And so, the Carter says that the reason they're 4-0 is because Joe hasn't been betting on them. So,
yeah, the Flames are about to be dead to me. The Flames are about to be dead to me. The fact that they're doing this,
and all of a sudden they're winning a lot of games. But
you're right though, Randon. It is pretty crazy. And with Edmonton, that was the big win for them to come back the other day, win that game. They're up right now in the third period in Nashville. So, obviously I wouldn't pour dirt on them. I think we learned that last year. So yeah, it's kind of crazy right now in the Pacific. I think the story for me in the Pacific, as much as it's Edmonton struggles or Calgary is being as great as off to the hot start, a healthy Vegas is just a freaking scary Vegas, right? That they have been. There's times where they look absolutely incredible, and we've talked about their lack of depth, perhaps, but if they are a healthy team, they are going to be really tough to beat.
Yeah, they had a tough loss today to Tampa. They gave up that last-minute goal to Kucherov to kind of to win it for Tampa Bay. So they're 3-2 now. But yeah, that was the thing with Vegas. Like, yeah, we're going to be kind of intimidated by them with the roster that they have. It's just whether or not they can stay healthy. Edmonton, I'm not going to say like this is maybe a little different than last year, but I mean, Mike, we brought up the concerns about their defense coming into the season, and I mean, they have Troy Stetcher playing in the top 4. Like, this is a guy that was a healthy scratch for the Kings 2 years ago or a couple years ago in the playoffs. So it's like now he's being paired with Darnell Nurse. Darnell Nurse looks like he hasn't missed a beat in terms of just being absolutely terrible. So, and yeah, that Ty Emberson, that guy that they were happy and propping up like coming into the year, he's been a healthy scratch now. So it's like, where do they turn? And I'm kind of hearing the same things with Vancouver. Like, I'm seeing a lot of Vancouver Canucks fans talk about how they need to be on the aggressive in terms of trading for a right shot defenseman. So there's some defense concerns. I know Edmonton, like, I'd be very surprised if they're not top of the division in the Pacific at the end of the year. But it's just something to keep an eye on as the season progresses, whether or not these defenses in the Pacific can continue to kind of help out the talent up front.
Well,
I'm still going to be, I'll still take Emerson.
I'll keep my mouth shut until they're eliminated.
Yeah, but
yeah, I'm not gonna go there.
I'm just so down on Cody Cece that I think over the course of the season it's not going to be a big deal. Like there's obviously some rough starts early. Emerson has had a rough go early, and I think we're seeing it as LA fans with some defensemen as well. So I just think when the dust settles that they're still going to be, their decor is going to be roughly a wash, I think, as last year. Vancouver did call up Eric Brandstrom is in Vancouver now. I'll be interested to see how he does there, getting the call up. But there it is fair. They could use a right shot D. That I buy. So we'll see what they if they decide to do something there.
I do got a little bit of disappointing news. I saw Dan P just put it in the chat. Sean Dursey is going under surgery, going to be out 4 to 5 months. That's
that sucks.
Obviously, we've all been big fans of Dursey when his time in LA, and they're an entertaining team, very fun.
Oh yeah,
team. I mean, Dylan Gunther is just just going to keep firing and firing. I love whenever Dimitri Filipovic
LTIR ad.
What was that?
LTIR ad for Utah if they're in playoff contention.
Yeah, there you go. But Dylan Gunther looks good. He's firing on all cylinders. I love when Dimitri Filipovic shares that, like, I just started firing kind of meme. Like, I know he got paid at the beginning of the year. I didn't really know too much about. Well, I knew he was a good player, but you kind of put in a heavy investment into a player who hasn't really produced.
You do that though.
But yeah, this is kind of what we talked about with like Byfield at the beginning of the year, even going back to Adrian Kempe before he signed his contract. So like it's paying off for them. So, but I mean, to lose a player like Dursey, who was supposed to be this heart and soul guy for Utah and their first year there, that's a tough blow. And I think they'll still be competitive with the talent that they have there and the depth that they have there. But yeah, it's going to be a rough go with them without Dursey.
For sure.
Well, that'll conclude our first series of Coast to Coast. So thank you for listening on all that around the NHL there. We're going to get straight into one of our sponsors here at THPN is Game Time. It's our new sponsor to get all your tickets. You can use Game Time. I know hockey coming back, football's in action. I'm actually thinking about buying tickets to a concert here later this month. Game Time is where you can get everything in there, and the all-in price is what makes it really good. So the Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks, which makes getting tickets to your favorite teams see them play live even easier. Game Picks filters out all the fluff to show you all the incredible deals, the great seats. So you can see the cheapest seats. You can see their best value. You could see, hey, I want to make some adjustments on where I want to sit on which side, and it all filters it for you based on what your experience is. And the more tickets you buy through Game Time, the more it can customize the filters based on what you like. So I'm just looking at right now here. If I'm looking at the home opener, I'm seeing you could watch the home opener right now for $36 all in. You could watch you get lower level 124 to see lower level. Best ticket price right now, mid-level, second row, 108. I mean, like, these tickets are top-notch, all-in pricing, so you don't have to worry about those fees coming up. You see that low price, and then all of a sudden, you owe an arm and leg for your tickets. So, Game Time, the curation is easier to save more in sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. You get the all-in pricing that I've been talking about. Great seat view. So you click on the seat that you're about to buy. You can see panoramic views of your seat on the app. Lowest price guarantee. So Game Time will credit you up to 110% of the difference. If the prices go down, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So let's take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code THPN to get 20% off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code THPN for 20% off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
I just gotta say, I had a little chuckle because I was checking the scores right now, and I saw the Islanders and Blues were in a 0-0 overtime game.
That sounds about right.
Oh my god! I was on a flight back from Minnesota the other day, and I watched a Capitals game, and I just wanted to tear my eyes out because I don't not know how fans like watch that team play. It's just an absolutely brutal watch to watch the Capitals play hockey.
Yep.
But they ended up beating the Golden Knights. I think it was a couple nights ago. But good Lord, those teams are so boring to watch.
PLD went from, I think, 17 minutes a night to 15 after the first game. So they already dealing with
For
that.
what it's worth, Carberry called him one of his best players on their opening game. And yeah, I think it's
like I said, look at who he's playing. I'm sorry. Connor McMichael and Tom Wilson.
Yeah.
Well,
sorry.
Speaking of scores, Dodgers go up 7-2. It's the bottom of the sixth right now if you're watching live with us here on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, please hit that like button as we're moving on here. Let's get into the games, our week. So 5 games in the East Coast there. 2-1-2 for 6 points. Currently as score stand, that puts us third in the Pacific. So, we have some, we're in the playoff spot after the road trip. Not exactly the vibes that maybe we thought, but, you make the best out of it. Road Trip Woes is the title of this episode, because I think the vibe, even though we won the bookend of the trip, the vibe of the trip and how the lineups got all shuffled together and the expectations for Byfield to have this incredible season and all this kind of stuff like that. It's kind of I think there's a lot more questions after the 5 games than we got answers to coming into the season. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
No, I totally agree. I mean, even after this win tonight against Montreal, which I thought the Kings played a really solid game, and we'll dive into it. But yeah, you're totally right. Like, it just felt like this roller coaster ride with a terrible opening game in Buffalo, but you still managed to squeak out the 2 points with Anze Kopitar playing well, Darcy Kemper staying on his head. Then you go into Boston, you actually play pretty well, but then you lose in overtime. Then you go to Ottawa and just have that ridiculous 8-7 game. And it was just like, God, man, it was like the Seattle game all over again. And then, then the other night or last night in Toronto, which was just awful, which I kind of expected, but even worse than what I expected. But with tonight, then I was just hoping to see a good bounce back performance. Like, that's what I really wanted to see. Like the lineup is what it is. Like, you're just trying to get 2 points at this time. Like, you've been on the road for so long. Practice time is at a minimum right now for this team, especially for the long road trip. So you just want to – I understand what Hiller did with the lineup, and we'll probably talk about it a little bit more. But at the end of the road trip with this East Coast road trip, I know there's still 2 games left on it, but you're just trying to get 2 points. And I thought they did a really good job. I thought Hiller did a good job in terms of just managing the game in itself, and you just figure out the rest of the season as you go when you come back. So to finish off and to kind of end the East Coast swing of this opening 7-game roadie with 2 points in Montreal, I think that's a pretty good ending.
I think from a results standpoint, points in 4 of them, you get a couple wins. It ends with a win here. They get 6 points, as Dan P says. I think from a results standpoint, it's solid, definitely solid. I'd sign up for 2-1-2 all day on this trip. So no concerns there. I mean, would you take a step back and look at some other things, as Brandon said. Yeah, I don't even know where to begin now with some of the questions. I mean,
well, I'll tell you right here, Joe. Let me throw a question at you. Let's do it.
Sure.
Right, so I think our number one, our top player, Russell's MVP, moved from center to wing. This might just be like Russ said, to jumble up the lines. They really have a chance to practice or do anything like that, but it wasn't working, so you got to do something. But moved up to the wing. Turcotte gets rewarded by moving up, and then he who shall not be named was centering the 4th line. So, but Byfield moving to wing, is he just a winger? Is this a temporary thing? Does he have to be a center for the Kings' long-term production? Like, how do you view this, Joe, as far as making that move today?
I don't think it's a good thing that they made that move today. 5 games into the season, you're moving who a lot of people, the LA Kings included, were talking about this guy. Like, he's moving back to center. This is the future franchise center. And he's moving off to center 5 games into the season. Now, there's a few things that – look at that. Knocked the mic over. There's a few things that go to that. Turcotte's play and him forcing himself up the lineup, I think, also played a factor in this, of course. And there seems to be – they don't necessarily want to move him off of center from the looks of it and the way he's played. I can't argue that. I think he's deserved this playing time. I think Turcotte's had a great start. So I think that's playing into this too. But Byfield hasn't had a very good start. This is not the start that we expected from Quentin Byfield, especially the way preseason went, which is just another reminder. Just don't ever bother with preseason. It just doesn't matter. But I thought, I got sucked into it too. He looked really, really good, but it just has not translated. He hasn't been the same. He hasn't had the same pep. It hasn't been the same Byfield that we've seen in the past. So moving him to wing, where he excelled the last 2 seasons, really, I'm sure he's going to do quite well there. So in the short term, fine. I think now that opens up an issue where we talked about Dennis Bernstein's tweet or the article from the fourth period about a fourth line center. Now they do need a center. Trevor Lewis is not an NHL center, so I don't know that I don't know what the future holds for this lineup, right? If Byfield's going to stay on the wing, if Turcotte's going to move up, that does absolutely create a hole on the fourth line that now we have a bit of an issue. And then if you're talking about Turcotte, say, God forbid, somebody gets hurt down the middle, well, Byfield, you keep moving off of center. So if you're just you're not moving him off of center because he's playing too good at center. You're moving him off of center because he's not driving the line the way you expected him to. So that's a concern long term. Like when it comes to your question, Brandon, does he have to be a center long term? I'll tell you right now, if the Kings in 2 years don't have their franchise center in Quentin Byfield, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So, but short term, fine. Like whatever is Russell, whatever Hill's got to do to get him going, whatever. But long term, that's a problem.
So Russ, they brought it up on the broadcast, and then Carter Scores brings it up here, saying Byfield hand. He was pulled out of the game the end of last game against Toronto. Was a little bit messed up. Maybe it's a injury thing. Taking face-offs a little bit more. Use of that hand, and so maybe they just kind of took him out of that, but they needed him in the lineup. So if it's an injury thing, that's one thing. But as far as if it's not an injury thing and it's something that they're thinking about doing long term, how do you view that for the team?
Yeah, I totally agree with Joe. If he's not a center for this team or this franchise moving forward, then that's a bad thing. That he needs to be a center. That's what he was drafted to be. That's what he's been hyped up to be all summer long and in training camp. So, we saw him play pretty good. Yeah, he looked good at that position at training camp. But with Joe, it's kind of hard to put a lot of stock into preseason results. I don't know if it's maybe an injury thing. He didn't take any faceoffs today. So, it is what it is. He's obviously playing on the wing. So his opportunities to take a faceoff are going to be few and far between. But I don't know. It's kind of tough because, you want to point to maybe it is an injury thing. But, you look at the results from these first few games, you're just thinking like, okay, maybe this is a move to get him going a little bit. And maybe just by the way that they played today and the results that they got from today's game, now you're thinking like, okay, well, if that's what's going to happen and you're going to get some production out of the first line, because obviously they've looked good. Like, we know that line can play well together. We've seen it for a season and a half or so. And we know Fiala and Danault and Moore can play well together. We've seen it. It's just now what happens with the third line, with the fourth line, because Turcotte's looked great. I love seeing that. I love seeing him play with Laferriere. I think the Alexes are a solid duo that maybe something can develop out of that. But if that leaves us with Trevor Lewis as your 4C, that's just not going to be acceptable, to be honest with you. Like there was moments today where I was like, dude, there's no way he could be on the ice. Like that penalty he took, it was just, I was like, God damn, like that's just awful. So it's funny because I'm watching the Toronto Maple Leafs broadcast on Sportsnet last night in Toronto, and like during the intermission, they're hyping up the Kings because of the center depth, and they were talking about Quentin Byfield down the middle, and that was like a majority of the segment in an intermission. So it's like, now what? Now what's your center depth? Yeah, Turcotte has looked great, but there's some injury history there. It'd be obtuse not to to overlook that. So we have to talk about it. We all hope that he stays healthy and he can be the same kind of Alex Turcotte we see at the beginning of the year. But if he's not, and now you're stuck with Trevor Lewis as your 4C, and you're kind of searching for other holes and people to take spots here and there at the center position, and if Byfield can't be there, you're kind of stuck. You're kind of stuck with just two top two lines, and now we're we're having question marks probably even in the next offseason about whether or not Byfield's a centerman again. So it's like, yeah, I don't know if it's like you're kind of preaching like, or you're searching for short-term results as opposed to just overlooking future gains of having these young players develop in the positions that you want them to be in. But right now, I get it for this game, but he's got to move back to the center position.
And I want to be, I don't want to go too harsh on Byfield. I mean, and I know this includes tonight's game, but like, again, tracking shot contributions, like he's second on the team in shot contributions per 60, second only to Alex Turcotte, by the way. So he's involved. He's got a pair of slot passes, which is the second highest tally on the team. So it's just, but there's just something missing in the game though. Like I just not sensing like from what we saw last year, what we saw in camp and preseason, there's just something that's just not there. And again, we're 5 games in, so there's no need to like panic, but unless this was a combination of Hiller just saying, hey, we got a brutal 2 games here, I'm just shaking some stuff up, let's just do this for today, when we're going to get back out west and we'll see what happens, we'll see what the lineup looks out west. Plus maybe there was a hand thing where he didn't want him to play center. So though, setting those aside, like you know, it's concerning to me that they keep moving him off of center. And again, you don't do that because the guy's playing too good there. So we'll see what happens when we get back out west. It's still 5 games, still love the player, still think he's going to have a really good season. But, and again, I don't want to make it sound like it's all doom and gloom. There's been far worse players than Quentin Byfield on this team. You know, maybe the results, he hasn't scored or hasn't been some stuff that hasn't, you know, the production hasn't been there. But he is I say he's the least of their problems, but by moving off of center, that is an issue. Maybe it's not an issue today, but it's an issue. And so we'll see what happens though when they get back out west.
Yeah.
And the line, you know, like you said, with Turcotte, LaFerriere, and Fogle looked good today. I liked that quite a bit. You know, I don't know, Randon, if you want to spin this for a second to maybe the new guys.
Well, I just think it's, you know, it's probably 2 things. One, right, you're rewarding Turcotte for the excellent road trip. I thought there really wasn't a down game for him. And they're giving him power play 2 minutes, which we didn't really expect. So I think him, you know, having a decent year and maybe me getting my whiskey looks pretty good right now with him getting the special teams time there. But I think you kind of force that hand there, and then maybe it's just a 1-game thing. Like Russ said, they have 2 days off. They're going to have practice. I probably expect the lines to be different again against Anaheim, maybe a little bit, maybe not a whole lot. Like maybe the D pairs, because that was a weird D pairing today.
We got to talk about the D today. But
you know, well, I mean, your boy, you don't have to tell us how much he makes because he hasn't been with the team. But
in full mark, by the way, I want to give him stick taps. I'm not going to be saying anything about Edmondson other than congratulations. That's awesome. When it was home. Wife gave birth.
That's right? Why he was gone.
Yeah. Did the wife give birth, Russ? Was that?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Babies, like babies here.
I don't know if she did already, but yeah, that's why he left.
Okay. So hopefully,
you know, is it that? I think if we're going to stick with the centers, I think Akil Thomas not getting 1 game. I mean, you look at they shuffled up the D pairs in a complete blender, but Akil Thomas not even getting a start in. I know Andre Lee's been playing well, but he hasn't been playing. I don't think he's been playing well enough to eliminate Akil Thomas. I know they're not going to take out Lewis. So, like, I mean, we could talk about that until we're blue in the face here. But, like, Akil Thomas centering that line, but then they're not going to take out Jeannot either. So, Andre Lee's going to have to come out. He's been playing well. I don't think he's been playing well enough to not let Akil get 1 game. What are you guys thinking about this Akil thing? I know he didn't have a great camp, but not getting 1 game on the road trip?
Thought he'd get a game, but you just hit it. You just said it. They're not taking Lewis out, and Lee's earned his keep right now. Lee's playing fine. You could make the case, Randon, that, you know, it's not like he's playing so well that you can't maybe put Thomas in for him. But man, when you're a coach and you're asking this young kid to do X, Y, and Z, and he's doing X, Y, and Z, and he's doing everything asked of him. He's playing well. He's making plays. how do you take him out? You know, the guy to take out is Lewis, but to your point, it just is not going to happen. And it's really unfortunate because, you know, we don't know. Akil Thomas ended the season good last year, had a really poor, I thought, struggled at camp. So I understand why he's the healthy scratch here. But now we've seen 5 games. There's no reason to not at least not give him a couple games instead of Lewis. And that's not to say that Thomas is going to be good. I don't know that. He didn't have a great camp, so maybe his struggles continue. But there's there's nothing Lewis is doing to. You can make the case for a lot of these guys. Well, pretty much everybody except him. You know, although I don't think Tanner Jeannot's been very good at all. I'm not sure what he's bringing to the lineup here. So I was actually very happy to see him bump down to the 4th line today. But I don't know. Like I agree, Brandon. I thought he'd get a game. I think he should get a game. At some point, they got to kind of see what they got, especially if Byfield is going to be moved to the wing. They really going to have to get some rehearsal of Akil Thomas down the middle, but it shouldn't be at the expense of Andre Lee. I think Lee's playing quite well right now.
I mean, I'm going to give you the answer why Lewis isn't coming out is because he plays in the penalty kill. That's the only reason. And they're not – it seems like they're not comfortable with Akil Thomas in the center position. So, yeah, it would be Andre Lee's spot that he would probably lose. I'm not saying it's the right decision.
Right.
I don't think it is. But I'm curious to see what happens when they do come back to LA. I know they practiced on Saturday. Maybe we see some call-ups. I agree with you, though. Like, you could – like, Tanner Jeannot could be a healthy scratch. I could easily see it. He only played 8:28 today, 8:38, 8 minutes, 30 seconds today. Has been bumped from starting with Deneau and more, and now he's all of a sudden on the 4th line. Like, yikes, right there, right? So who knows what's going to happen on the 4th line when they come back? I would love to see Akil Thomas get minutes. I'm probably not. I'm not going to be overly upset about him not getting time, but it's like you would have liked to see him get a game in, especially in this back to back. But I just don't think they view him as a centerman or as a player that they can slot in the center position. I wouldn't be surprised if they come back home and then they call up Samuel Hellenius and say, "Hey, we're going to Anaheim. Anaheim's not necessarily this like competitive juggernaut, but maybe you've played against some of these guys going back against your time with the Reign and going up against them in the goals. Maybe you give them a 4th line spot. You move Lewis to the wing, and who knows, Akil Thomas is going to be on the healthy scratch side again." So I don't know. Like, I'm not going to be overly upset about Thomas not getting a game, but it is a little disappointing that they just couldn't find one to slot him in.
You know, and we'll see. I mean, we'll see if he plays all 82, Lewis, and what is.
I mean, that's what we said at the beginning of the year, right? Like, if he was healthy, he was going to play. Like,
but I think. But again, did it work last year? Was the 4th line effective all year long? No, it wasn't. So,
no.
Like, are they going to learn from their mistakes there and try it?
No.
But I mean, you never know. It's 5 games in. I don't expect it now, but
right.
You know,
no, they view
who knows?
Trevor Lewis extremely high. Like, this is like we've all said it. Like, we're all disappointed like how high they view him because we see the play on the ice. We notice it. Like, there's moments it's like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, same thing with Andreas Englund. Like what the hell? Like, there's, even though he scored today, which is like a total slap in the face to me, and it's so funny because like I just said the same shit to Zach McEwen in Ottawa, talking crap about him, and then he goes and scores 2 goals. Like, oh my god, here we go. And now, of course, England scores again today. It's like, ugh. But it is what it is. Like, they view these players and that they have no real production on the ice, but still they get minutes.
Can we talk about the crop of new guys? So there's Jeannot, Warren Fogle, Burrows, Jones, Caleb Jones, Edmondson. Am I missing anybody? I think that's all the new.
Yeah. Well, Kemper's new.
Okay, sure. I'll include Kemper in there. I was thinking more skaters, but that's fine. Also, I want to talk about the skaters, I guess, first. I mean, they're like 0 for 5. None of these guys look good right now, if I'm being honest.
Joel Edmondson had some decent moments in the first couple games. He doesn't look like abysmal. He's better than England.
He looks like Joel Edmondson.
I take his contract out of it, but he's looked better than our previous left-handed 3D.
Yes, if that's the bar, then you're right. That is fair. But
I don't get to choose the bar, Joe. I don't get to choose where the bar is set.
Fair enough. the
I just
best
get
one-
to complain about it.
Kyle Burrows was scratched today, guys. Like,
Yeah.
which I think is a little crazy when you consider who was playing. The one that's looked the best, I always think, is Caleb Jones. He's not and Russ, I know you were like intrigued by him this preseason. I don't think he's looked bad. Like,
No.
I could kind of get used to a Caleb Jones, Brandt Clarke pairing. Like, at times they looked okay together. I didn't look and dig and see what any numbers
Which
looked
would mean
like with them.
Gavrikov would have to play on his offside permanently.
I mean, or you just don't play England.
Well, no, like if Edmondson's coming back, then you have Spence Edmondson,
Right,
you have
fair.
Jones,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
and then you have Gavrikov.
Yeah. Because if they scratch Burrows, like, but I guess the point I'm getting at is, I really underwhelmed. It's 5 games. I understand that it's 5 games, but really disappointed. And I didn't have that high of expectations for Jeannot, but I just so far not seeing it. Warren Fogle, I'm very happy that he was bumped down. I don't know. I can see why he didn't get consistent time with the better players in Edmonton. Like, there's not a lot of playmaking ability there. He skates well. He shoots from everywhere, which is fine. But
so then what's different from you? Well, all of us had high hopes for that line, and maybe it was because of Byfield and Fiala. But what's different from 5 games ago to now after the short sample size for you, Joe?
I'll say, like, I think because with Fogle, I could get on board with it, with that line. I wasn't as high on it, I think, as you guys were, although I was also somebody that could see Fogle playing a similar role, like being that left winger if Laferriere didn't work out, with just the way he skated. But now getting a chance to watch him closely for a few games, like, there's not a lot of substance. Like, he skates well. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I want to be clear. Like, I think he's a useful player. He's an effective player. I just don't think he's a player that can play with top end guys, with high skill guys. I don't think he's at that particular level. That's not to say he can't be effective. I think he's an effective penalty killer. I think he can get up and down the ice. And I think his role on a third line, especially with like Turcotte and Laferriere, really like that fit. I didn't think the fit was all that. There's no creativity there. He had a billion shots at goal. He'll shoot from everywhere, which again, I guess is okay, but you're playing with Fiala and Byfield. Like, there's got to be a little bit of substance there. And to me, there just wasn't. So now, again, 5 games. We'll see as he settles in. He's still getting used to his new team, new system, new players, new line mates. He's got to get back in. He played a home game yet for the Kings. So we'll see. Like, I still think that there's like a player there that's an effective player. It's just maybe he's not a guy that can play up in the lineup, and he's much more suited to that kind of third line role, which is fine. But I haven't seen a ton from him so far. I don't know if you guys have.
No, I'm just with you. I don't know. I don't even know like where you slot him in going forward, because as good as I thought that line looked today, I thought it was more or less just Turcotte and Laferriere doing a little bit more than Fogle. Because I totally agree with you. Like, there's just a lack of skill and playmaking ability with Fogle, and it's not like he's a high end shooter either. So it's like, what else are you going to get from him? And
yeah. So
it's like
Russ, to that point, Russ, he's a shooter. He leads the team in shot attempts at 5-on-5 with Warren Fogle. So, like, he ain't afraid to put pucks in that. The problem is, echoing what you said, he's not a high end shooter. He's not a goal scorer. He's like, you can skate around and shoot the puck from anywhere. That's fine. I just don't know, what does that mean?
I wonder.
So it's Victor Arvidsson without the touch, is what you're saying?
It's not even that. Like, I mean, he's just like he's like an Alex Iafallo light. Like, he's not even Alex Iafallo. It's just, but like, he's a responsible player. He's a smart player.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing. Like, it's not going to hurt your team. He's just not going to get you goals and help you score.
The perfect LA King player.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious. Like, I would like to see him maybe play with like Deneau and Moore, even though like they have Fiala there. Like, you're not really expecting that line to produce too much, especially with Phil Deneau, who's not necessarily known as this offensive player. But you even with Moore, who scored 30 goals last year. But like, I feel like Fiala kind of gets wasted on that line a little bit.
Yeah.
even though I've seen production from them. Like, I wonder if maybe, like, we've never even seen Fiala with Kopitar. Like, even we saw it like a short stint, but for some reason, those two just never want to play together. So I'm curious, maybe you put Fiala with Turcotte and Laferriere. Like, maybe that's something you take a look at. Like, that might be something.
Or
what are we looking at?
This just popped into my head because now with Byfield on the wing, maybe a Turcotte, Byfield, and Fiala line. Now,
Okay,
that's fun. And because listen, I want to go back because they didn't need to like. I don't think the move of Byfield to left wing 1 was anything against Laferriere. I think Laferriere has been pretty good, and I think that he can slot in there in that first line and beat that line's been good. I don't want to overstate it, but like I don't think that line has been an issue or been a problem. Laferriere has been really good, and so again, to your point, if you put more with Fogel and Deneau, now you've got, if the way Turcotte's going, let's maybe push the envelope a little bit. How good can you be, Turcotte, and go play with Byfield and Fiala? Now that's a line. Again, we're spitballing here. We're 5 games into the season, and there's been a jumble of line combinations, which I totally get. I had no issues whatsoever with Hiller doing this today, off the back-to-back, off the last couple of games, put it in a blender. No problem with that, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So file that one away for later if we get a chance to see that.
You know what I have no problem with? Al Smith dropping a 30 burger on us here, saying, hey, been a while since I sent some cash your way. Thanks, you guys, for doing what you do. Al, tip the cap. Appreciate you. Long-time listener there. Thank you for coming in here, helping us keep the lights on, as they say in the industry. So appreciate that. We're going to keep that up there. If you want to ask a question, you get a free question, my man. Well, I guess you paid for it, but you get a question if you want to throw one in there. For the chat.
I think we should, but yeah, we need to like talk about Alex Turcotte and the great play, because he's been like one of the best players, if not the MVP of the road trip. So it's like, that's why, like, Joe, I totally agree with you. Like, if we're seeing this Alex Turcotte play the type of this level he's been playing at these first few games, like, you have to surround him with talent now. And I also agree, like, the move with Byfield and moving Laferriere down, like, nobody considered it. And like, I never even thought it was more or less what Laferriere has been doing and demotion for him. Everybody was more or less thinking like, okay, they're trying to get Byfield going. That's what that move was for. So, I mean, yeah, like Turcotte and Laferriere looked really good today. Like that goal that they scored, Turcotte gets the puck down low. Laferriere's working down low. They get it up high down to Spence. He throws it on, and Laferriere the high tip. That's perfect. Perfect hockey. That's exactly what you want to see from players who don't really have maybe a ton of skill, but are looking to try to get some goals in the net. So, yeah, I love it. I think it's been like, those are players, especially with Turcotte, who's had this up and down start to his NHL career, hockey career, professional career. So now that we're seeing this maybe top 5 pick now come to fruition a little bit, like, okay, well, we got something cooking now a little bit in terms of the center ice. Maybe it's not Kopitar, Deneau, Byfield for now. Maybe it's Kopitar, Deneau, Turcotte for right now. Like, which I'm not totally against, even though as much as we talked about trying to get Byfield back in the center ice position, but if you're trying to maybe amplify the work that Turcotte's been able to do, like, okay, let's get him with some talented players and see where this can go. Because he's been the best player, one of the best forwards on the ice.
I think he's been the best. When you look at the ice time he's gotten, like I said earlier, he leads the team in shot contributions per 60, leads the team in shot assists per 60. He's creating plays, 3 slot passes, leads the team through the first 5 games. Like, he's effective. And what's funny is when I watched the first game live in Buffalo, and like, I'm watching the game, I'm with some friends. So I'm obviously watching the game, but I'm not like studying the players. It just happened to be like, I left the game thinking, I was like, I wasn't, the Kings won. I was pumped at the Kopitar hat trick, blah, blah, blah. But like Turcotte, I was like, well, can he be that Blake Lizotte? It was 1 game. So but then when I rewatched it to do the tracking, I was like, oh, okay, Turcotte's involved in everything. Yeah, he was better when I went on the rewatch, and then every game I've watched since, I'm like, this kid's just involved in like every play, So
that was the big scouting report from him out of it. So a lot of people don't remember, like, he was injured in the beginning of his draft year, came back, was averaged I think like 2.5 points per game, which was more than Jack Hughes for the national team development program. And the way he was getting the points was just constantly being involved in everything. So like he wasn't a sniper. He wasn't like a really like, the Fiala or Brandt Clarke type sauce passes from across the ice. He was making the correct play all the time, being constantly involved in the play, being a puck hound, constant energy, just like a high-end guy that's constantly creating chances for his team and relying upon the elite people that he was playing with, i.e., Caulfield and everything like that, to bury the chances that he was creating. And so, to your point, Joe, like if you get him with some guys that can put the puck in the net, i.e., Laferriere tonight, team leading, goal leading Laferriere tonight, then maybe you might see something more high end offensively. Because I think a lot of people, including me, kind of put their fire for Alex Turcotte on the back burner. Is he really going to be anything more than a depth player? Are we ever going to see him in the top 6? And it's again 5 games, but he looks really good. A full off season, and this was more directed in the black and white because of Akil Thomas. But Akil Thomas said, "Hey, it's finally nice to have a summer where I don't have to worry about rehab anything. I can worry about playing hockey." And Alex Turcotte's in the same boat where like it's his first summer. Really he's not rehabbing anything, no injury concerns, and he just gets to worry about playing hockey. And I think we've seen early returns of that with him on this team.
He looks like he's like Blake Lizotte with more skill, and he plays like exactly how I would want a centerman to play. Like you said, Brandon, constantly involved, always on the puck in every zone. Like I love that about a centerman, and it's like the anti-Dubois, right? Like the guy was just constantly on the wing, just waiting for the puck to come to him. But no, you're a centerman. You should be demanding the puck. You should be the one going low in the defensive zone, just demanding the puck. Okay, give me the puck, D-man. Like I'll get it up to our wingers and let them make the plays. And I saw like there was one play today where the puck, the Canadians kind of got the puck in their own zone, and they were about to break out a little bit. And Turcotte was like, he was in on the forecheck a little bit, and then he just all of a sudden backed up as a centerman and kind of waited for everyone. I was watching Laferriere even, he was kind of doing the same thing. He then noticed Turcotte like skating back behind him as a centerman should, and kind of being that F3, like, okay, I'm going to be on the back burner. You go do on the forecheck. So I think that's what's been so good about Turcotte, because I think he's so noticeable because he's always involved and always on top of the puck in every zone. And like when you have those type of players, that's why I'm curious, like, okay, like maybe you get him with a little bit more skilled playmakers like Fiala and get him like a kind of a shooter with Laferriere, even though he's kind of still kind of getting his shot comfortable in the NHL. So like, and maybe that was why he was so productive with players like Trevor Zegras and Arthur Kaliev, like in the USA national team, players that like Zegras, who's that playmaker, and Kaliev's that shooter. So yeah, you got to give him the chance. You got to give him the opportunity if he's going to continue this excellent play. Because, I mean, we've seen this Kings team just prop up these players who probably haven't deserved minutes. So now with Turcotte, who's kind of like taking a stranglehold on this excellent play, and I'm sure is catching the eyes of some coaching staff, like he deserves them now.
Yeah, with the line after the first few games there, the Byfield. To me, in my opinion, the Byfield and Fiala is like they need a winger that's either going to be a high-end shooter or a goal scorer, I should say. Trevor Moore scored 30 goals last year. Maybe he could fit there. Or they need somewhat of a brain, a playmaker. And that's where I think Alex Turcotte could fit there too. So I'm intrigued by it. I'm just intrigued by Turcotte in general. I think he's been the brightest spot in this trip. You look at, and I would say him and Laferriere too. Laferriere has been really good. So the fact that these guys are playing this well early, I think is good signs.
Yeah, it's and I just good for him. Like good for him, and nothing about it. And maybe getting a little mustache miracle, with that little that Pence stash.
Hey, maybe if Arthur Kaliev comes back, like that could be a spot for him. They've had chemistry together, and like Kaliev had his ups and downs with the franchise and his start, and even just as an NHLer. But I mean, the chemistry's been there with Turcotte. He knows how to play with Artie, so who knows? Maybe they become a duo again.
Still updated score, bottom of the 7th for everybody listening live, 7-2 Dodgers.
Brandon, we're what, over an hour in, and we haven't mentioned once your boy. You haven't gotten the train.
I mean, just like I was betting on him, I'm going to be betting with DraftKings. So we're going to go to our sponsor here at DraftKings Sportsbook, and then we're going to get to my boy. So DraftKings, the quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck is dropping on the 24-25 season. Get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking the team to win, or going to DraftKings Sportsbook, selecting your team, and placing that first bet. So I'm taking a peek here at the odds, and there's 3 games tomorrow night. So if you want a little parlay action, you bet all the favorites plus $8.99. So that means you bet $10, you get $90 right there. If you little mini parlay, something to bet against while you're watching the games. Odds are always subject to change, so look out for that. But the NHL is ready to go, and so is DraftKings. So if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code THPN. Let's go THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you just bet $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY, which is 467369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please pay responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill and Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved. Well, all I know is my tinfoil hat, or my bold prediction. Clarke Train's on pace for 66 points, fellas, and having a hell of a road trip. I know rough game 2. It was nice for them to go back in and let him go, and then get some, right shot D. I know it was in the roughest game of the road trip, but right shot D won. But I've been, you're taking the good with the bad, and we saw we're going to see that, and we saw a lot of high and good. I thought him quarterbacking the power play has been excellent, finding the spots, relying on the teams, getting the one-timers. That touch pass to Kempe on that one-timer, and they talked about it. They said, hey, it was just the perfect amount of speed, and when you're a shooter and that pass is going to come right every single time, you don't have to kind of wait or hitch your one-timer. You can just let it rip. It's just something that that is going to come from a certain player. And then we've seen the passes across the ice, like him trying to feather it into places that really only Clarke is probably going to try, maybe him and Fiala. And eventually one of those soft passes across the ice is going to hit a stick and go in. I thought he should have had a goal that got called back. I mean, he could be on pace for 82 points if that goes in. So, not trying to get out of my seat here and call for Norris votes, but I've been happy with his play so far. He's been playing with multiple partners, played well in the power play, had one really big gaffe in overtime, but he's a young player and it's going to happen. And I think it's good that the organization showed confidence in him and went back to him and then allowed him to get more minutes even after the blunder. So I've been really happy with Clarke so far, and also shown a little bit of moxie, a little bit of not that he hasn't shown confidence, but a lot of people were scared that he's not going to be able to back himself up, and he's getting into the play, he's getting after the play, talking that trash, defending himself. And so I think so far, early returns on Brandt Clarke have been what we expected, and the points are coming.
And I'm glad that, like you said it best, I'm glad the team is giving him the opportunity to be Brandt Clarke, especially the power play, the chance is going to be there, especially with Doughty out. But even in certain situations now, like the end game, and it was Toronto game, was whatever, but they propped him up to the first pair with Mikey Anderson. He had decent moments there, but I feel like we've seen flashes of what we kind of want Brandt Clarke to be as an NHLer, as a defenseman. So that's good. That's good. We don't expect him to come in and be this elite talented player right away, even as high as we all are on him. But it hasn't been bad, I guess is what I'm saying. We haven't seen things that are saying okay, maybe Clarke needs to be scratched here and there, or like go down, whatever. Like we're seeing the trajectory of like, okay, like the progression is there, the development is there. Like let's just keep it going, and we can maybe get some experience under his belt, and we can start to get a little bit more confidence there, even though he probably doesn't even need it.
Yeah, to that point, I think he's steadily gotten a little bit better each game. He's settling in. He's not letting any bad plays or bad games seem to affect him. And boy, I mean, I don't mean to beat this horse, but like I think it's one game, and it was just against a team in Montreal who was, probably going to be a bottom 10 team. So again, really not looking to go too heavy into this, but the numbers that he put up with Caleb Jones today were excellent and just vastly better than what he put up with Edmonton. Again, when you have him paired, and I'm a believer that if you have a player like Clarke paired with somebody who can skate and is capable with the puck, I actually think that helps a player like a Clarke or a Spence more so than having, a bubble hockey player. I just think that is a better suited. It can complement him a little bit better rather than have you just stay at home guy. One game, so we'll see. I'm sure it'll be Edmondson Clarke when they get back at it and stuff. But and we'll see how that evolves as the season goes along. But I think Clarke's been very good. I'm happy to give him the leash because obviously we saw, yesterday, Spence, having a seat in the press box after he's had a rough go of it to start the season, which has been disappointing for as high as we were on him. But Clarke, they've given him the leash. I think he's looked good in the power play. So, and the production's there. At the end of the day, a player like Clarke, you need him to produce, and he's producing. So that's a good thing.
I think there's one thing, I think there's still, he's still a young player. I'm not going to bash him, too much. But, there's a little bit of maturity. I want to see a little bit more maturity there. There's certain situations where, we're, as Kings fans, we all bash players like Tim Stützle and Draisaitl for the diving and whatnot. But I've seen that at times with Clarke, and I don't want him to get to that point where he's doing that too much. I know he's a confident player. He's a very eccentric player on the ice. So I would like to see that maybe calm down a little bit. I'm not overly concerned about it, but you can see we saw it at times with Drew Doughty when he was a young player. He was just constantly yelling at the officials, breaking sticks for things like that. And I wonder maybe if something that's Doughty can have a talk with Clarke for certain situations and kind of utilize the experience that he has to help him out a little bit.
I'm glad you mentioned the name Drew Doughty because I think this defense group sorely misses Drew Doughty. Mm-hmm. That hole has been felt big time, at least in my opinion, because I don't think any of these guys have played very good. Clarke has played fine. Spence has had a bad start. Mike Anderson's had a bad start.
His best game was today, though.
Huh?
Mike Anderson's best game was today for sure.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even excluding the goal, he still had a good game.
Agreed. But still, I haven't been. Gavrikov for the first 3 games was far and away the best defenseman, and Toronto did not go well. It's just that this back end is fighting it right now. So actually, to be 2-1-2 when you've got, I think, a crop of defensemen that aren't playing great. Not as good as they're going to, and you're not getting that many saves. Although Big Save Dave finally, after had a bad first goal, played really well the rest of the game. To be 2-1-2, I think is pretty good, all things considered. When you look at some of the questions marks we talked about up front, the back end I just think is a mess right now, and I don't know what's going on in goal. Kemper's hurt. I don't know what the severity there is. So, but just I don't want to gloss over the importance of Drew Doughty. I think, it's we're seeing how hard it is to just replace him. We were all very big on Jordan Spence, and I thought an Anderson Spence pairing was going to be just fine. And who knows, maybe it will at some point, but it ain't Anderson Doughty. And for how good Drew Doughty has been for this team, especially these last couple of years here, it's a big, big loss.
Actually, before we get into what hypothesis for the rest of the road trip, what did you think of the Spence press box thing? I mean, it's one game. You send him up there, you let him sit. He had a really bad game. You entrusted him with a lot, so he fell short of that.
Yep.
Kind of what was that vibe? Obviously, we don't like the replacements. When we take England out of it, they benched Burrows, they've benched Spence already the first run. Obviously, Caleb Jones and England were just scratches, but they were out because the lineup started that way. What have you think about them kind of like giving some guys some seats at the back half of this?
I mean, the way Spence's start was really rough, so I'm not inherently against the idea of like giving him a puff. I mean, I guess maybe I would have tried him with a different partner or something like that and shuffled that around first. But then again, when you look at the scenario of, we got a back-to-back coming up, the way he's going, he's going to get eaten alive against the Leafs. Maybe that's an opportunity for him to just take a breather. I think given the circumstances of who, it's England that's coming in, I'll never subscribe to that. But the thought kind of in general, I don't think is like a terrible, I don't think it's a crazy thought that, okay, let's give him a puff, because it's like what was so infuriating last year when they did this is he was playing so freaking good in the role that they gave him. Like he was playing obviously third pair minutes, whatever, but he was playing great. So to sit him down last year was mind numbing. This year he's asked to play a bigger role. It has not gone well yet. So I can understand it. Like I said, I probably would have preferred they maybe tried a different pair or slotted him down, maybe lessened his minutes a bit or something like that. But I understand it.
Yeah, I thought it was an overreaction, to be honest. Like, it's just, I mean, especially when you lose Edmondson, where he had to go back home, to take out Spence, and because he was already in a situation that is just tough as it is with playing in the RD1 role. That's, no one expected that coming into the year, and now all of a sudden you're benching him because he's in a role that he's probably not going to be productive in. Like, yeah, I get it. He had a bad game in Ottawa. Like, it was awful. 13 minutes. He was outshot, I think, double when he was on the ice. So, yeah, like that, he needs to be better there. But still, like, to bench him the next game, and then your team gives up 6 goals. I know it's Toronto. Like, they're going to score. It is what it is. But even then, like, it's just, I felt like to replace him, too, with the players that you're replacing with, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, it just felt like another kind of, like, LA Kings kind of moment where it's like, okay, now you're benching another young player to replace him with a replacement level player. It's like what are we trying to prioritize here? Are we prioritizing trying to win games, or or are you trying to send a message, or are we prioritizing trying to develop these young players who are just kind of getting their feet wet in the NHL still? Spence is in his 3rd year. He's still a young player, but putting in a situation he's probably not. A little too much for him, but even then, like, he needs to be getting minutes here and there.
I think the only reason why I'm a little bit more, I wouldn't have done it. I'm just saying I can understand. I think the reason I'm a little bit more leaning that way, where I understand it, is I actually, and I don't think you meant it. I don't know that if you meant it this way, Russ. Like, I think there's some benchings that are sending a message, right? I don't think this was that. I think this was a watch it from above. Okay. Let's take a step back. He's probably watching it with somebody, and let's more of a teaching moment, if you will, and a coaching moment. So if it was a message sending thing, that's lame. Okay. That's lame. I don't think that was it. I think this was an opportunity that they felt, given the struggles that maybe now what I'm curious is just to see how he's utilized here. I know obviously he played today. Let me just pull up really quick what he had for his partners who he played with the most today was England. Clearly they were obviously sub 50 in shot attempts and sub 50 in expected goals, but 'tis the season. So I don't know. I think, again, I just think a player like that and a player like Clarke, they're not going to be better suited with guys that are stapled to where they are on the ice. I think they need guys that are going to complement them a little bit more. So I think Gavrikov, which is interesting because I thought Mike Anderson would have been that, but that pairing just did not look good. And I don't know, I'm not going to run to go back to Anderson Spence, but I think a Gavrikov Spence pair, I still think maybe that's something. That opens up a lot of questions with the rest of the D. So I don't know if they'll do that, but I guess
we're going to see Gavrikov in the top pair probably for a while, I feel like. And as much as it sucks, and we've been calling for players to play on their offhand the last few years with the right defenseman they've had and whatnot, but like I think we'd be lying to say that Gavrikov hasn't been really good. So it's like if you're kind of searching for good defensemen to kind of fill these holes that you're missing now with Doughty and whatnot, like you have to prop him up to the top pair. And I don't know what their numbers were today, but I thought once again he had a pretty solid game. So it's like, I mean, if the Mikey Anderson Jordan Spence pair isn't going to work, and they're so set on Edmondson and Clarke together, which I think isn't the worst thing, because putting Clarke in a situation where Jordan Spence was in, I think that's you're just putting your wheels burning your wheels a little bit. So it's like, okay, like put Gavrikov there. It's just a little disappointing now that you have to. Now they're giving them the opportunity to give an excuse to play Andreas Englund.
Let me ask you this. Maybe it's Mikey Anderson.
It could be.
Hot take. Yeah. Like Gavrikov has been.
He was just his dad too. That's right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, because Gavrikov has been. Everybody knows I've never been the biggest Gavrikov guy. This is as good as I've seen him play in a King. I think he's been excellent. I mean, the Toronto game, set that aside for a second, but like overall, the first 5 games, I think he's comfortably the LA Kings' best defenseman. Maybe it's Gavrikov is your LD1, and it's maybe
Gavrikov Clarke. Please give me Gavrikov.
Or Gavrikov Spence, and it's Anderson that slides down a little bit and then plays maybe an Anderson Clarke, right? Gavrikov Spence, maybe try something like that. Again, I don't know. This is me. Like if I'm Jim Hiller, you saw what he's done with the decor the last 2 days. He's searching for anything, and right now it looks like he's landed on Anderson Gavrikov, and I get it because I think Gavrikov has been the best defenseman on this team. I don't think it's been particularly close, but again, is he propping up Mikey in that instance? Because Mikey's not been very good. This has not been a good Mikey Anderson to start this season so far.
And I want to kind of boomerang a question right back at you, Joe, because something you said is maybe it's Mikey Anderson's fault. Like, is Mikey Anderson, not that he's a bad player, but is he the perfect player for Drew Doughty, but he's not an LD1?
We've talked about this for years, where Mikey Anderson's probably an LD2 on most teams, on most contending teams, playoff teams, however you want to slice it. He's probably not an LD1 on any other team that's considered a really good team other than the LA Kings, because him and Doughty have just been the pair. They've been really good together over the years. They fit each other. And so, and I want to give a little bit more grace to Mikey because, like, he spent so much time with Drew Doughty over the last, 5 years or whatever it is, that, now he's got to go an extended period of time with somebody else, and that somebody else might be Jordan Spence, obviously to start the season, who's a
totally different players too.
Totally different players. So like, I'm sympathetic to Mikey's struggles early this year too, because there's a lot on his plate, assistant captain now, and trying to like probably work with Jordan Spence a lot too. So I don't mean this to be too harsh on Mikey. You say it's like his fault that Spence is struggling. I don't. That's not what I mean. It's just his play hasn't been great right now, and maybe take some of the pressure off him a little bit. And if Gavrikov's going to play as well as he's played, then elevate his ice time a little bit more. And still maybe find a chance to keep them separated. But we'll see. I mean, today together the goals were 1-1 with them on the ice. It was 6-5 in shots, 15-10 in favor of the Kings in shot attempts, and they held the edge in expected goals. So they were solid today. Anderson and Gavrikov were, but you wonder, like, when Edmondson gets back, so if it's going to be, is it going to be Burrows, Spence, Edmondson, Clarke? If Spence has played, he's had a rough start. Is Burrows the right partner for Jordan Spence? I don't know.
I think you'd probably go Caleb Jones Spence. I'd go there. I mean, if
I
they're
would go
going to
there.
be so set on Edmondson Clark, I feel
Yeah.
like, and that probably is going to be the second pair once they get back, once Edmondson returns. Like, I think Anderson Gavrikov as probably as low upside of a pairing as that's going to be. That's probably what you have to roll with moving forward. Because besides that, like, where else do you turn? Anderson Spence hasn't worked out really.
Are you
Anderson
sure about
Clark,
that?
Anderson Clark.
I think you could. Again, I just don't know that we've seen a ton of it. So as Hiller is trying to find answers here, I don't think Gavrikov Spence is crazy, and I don't think. But again, to your point, I guess if Clark's going to be glued to Edmondson, But I think an Anderson Caleb Jones is fine. I mean, no one's getting excited about it, but I don't know. I think if you've got Anderson, because Edmondson Clark, yeah, I guess you're right. Edmondson Clark ends up being in your top 4, and I mean, no matter how you slice it, I guess as a whole, like the decor, they are so far behind other teams in the NA. Like, this is not a contending team.
We've been searching for an LD1 for forever. It feels like It's like, dude.
And it worked with Mikey because of the partnership with Dowdy, but I mean,
how much Dowdy Gavrikov did we see last year? Did we see any
Dowdy Gavrikov?
Yeah,
I don't think much.
It was all Gavrikov Roy.
Yeah,
all Gavrikov Roy.
And it's like, I think, and it's kind of an overall takeaway, I guess, as we, we're kind of getting, I assume we're getting probably to the later part here, but, I looked at some of the comments after the Ottawa game, and just very, very, very early 2000s, late 90s talk about pucks in deep, pucks to the net, north, south. And it's just like, well, this is just this is the Kings. Like, this is the way that they think the game is today. Obviously I disagree with that, but I think the lack of that mindset, right? That organizational mindset, the lack of a game breaker in the up front as a forward, and whatever's going on in this decor, and I don't know what's going on in net because I don't know Kemper's status. Like, this team
they're going to have to go. It's going to have to be one game at a time.
Yeah,
like,
very much so.
That's why tonight's game was just like Hiller. Like, I get it. Like, what Hiller was trying to do. You're searching for 2 points, and you're not really thinking about the future. Even though we'd love to see Byfield at center, we'd love to see certain players playing maybe more elevated minutes. But you're just trying to get 2 points at this point and trying to clog the holes in the sinking boat, really, with Dowdy out, and then maybe you figure it out at the trade deadline or something. But I mean, for now, yeah, struggling. But you got to take advantage of your opportunities. Take advantage of the opportunities, the few ones you get.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at it. I mean, I have the stats scrolling across the bottom. I mean, 6 out of 10 points doesn't seem that bad. I think it's just the way they got them, and the more the questions it had were bottom half in both special teams categories, and so it's where we thought maybe we'd have a top penalty kill. We thought the power play would be a little bit better. That hasn't really been it. The goalie stats aren't great, even with Kemper staying on his head the first 2 games. The Ottawa game obviously inflates that. So, one game at a time, Russ. That might be the motto for the next couple of weeks to kind of see how this team settles in with 8 defensemen. You have Turcotte playing way better than I think a lot of people thought, kind of forcing his hand there. Clark on his way to win a Norris Trophy. So, they got some question marks and they got some good to play from both. But one play at a time. I mean, they have 2 days off, Anaheim, a day off, Vegas. They're going to be at home. They're going to finally get to, as Dooley said, he goes, I got a plump mattress with my name on it as soon as I get back. They're going straight there. So I think it's rough. The schedule was rough. They played okay from the results. Is this really the Kings team we're going to see all season? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, there's still probably a lot of questions that need to be answered. But I think overall, we need to take a deep breath and probably hit the pillows like a lot of the Kings players are doing right now on that flight. And, see what Anaheim looks like. Take a deep breath again, see what Vegas looks like, and then, like I said, take it one game at a time, right, Russ?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they haven't even played a home game yet. So it's like they've been on the road ever since the beginning of October. Maybe you split Anaheim and Vegas. You finish the 7-game road trip with 8 points out of 14. Not bad. It's not
really, bad. Really quick, just because we didn't touch on the goalies really at all. Just really, really quick. Great for Copley. I'm so happy he's back. Yeah. Good recovery. Dave had a nice bounce back today in Montreal. We'll see what's up with Kemper's injury. He's been up and down, though. Great game in Buffalo. Good game in Boston. Rough go of it with the Sens. So I don't know what's going on in that right now, but I just wanted to make sure we didn't really touch on that at all. So
one breath, one game. Hashtag goalies, right, fellas? So we'll see how it works out there. Well, as always, thank you guys for coming in here. Good Kings win tonight. 2 more games on the road trip like we talked about, and then get that home game. You know where you can get your tickets for the home game time, the official sponsor of THPN. If you want to bet on those games, throw it down with DraftKings. You can find all of our articles throughout the season at hockeyroyalty.com. All of our Twitter handles are scrolling across the bottom. Please hit us a like on the way out. Get those algorithms going up. We want to speak to more people. We want to have this King season popping. Again, thank you to all our fans who listen here live and on the pods. And as always, on this podcast, go Kings.